I'm Bill Myers, publisher of Money Magazine. We at Money believe that the opportunities for wealth building have never been greater. Information and investment instruments that once were accessible only to the affluent are now available to everyone. The possibilities of achieving financial independence is within the grasp of all of us. That's why we put together this program, 100 Steps to Wealth. It's a series of lesson plans designed to inform serious investors about the many paths to financial security. We feel confident we can provide you with the knowledge, but the discipline and the motivation are really up to you. This video will introduce you to some ordinary Americans who began with very, very little and have achieved extraordinary success. They have some specific ideas about how you too can succeed. And you'll also meet some of the country's most respected financial experts. They'll pass on some wealth-building strategies that work for their affluent clients and can work for you too. This is a great time to be a wealth builder. Opportunities are virtually everywhere. And we are convinced that you will be as excited about 100 Steps to Wealth as we are here at Money Magazine.
I never thought that we'd be wealthy overnight, but I said if we kept the course, eventually we'll be successful. But never knew how successful we'd be.
Because I came from a very poor background, I came to the realization that even someone who came from a poor background could build wealth. And I began to really believe that I could do this.
I know a lot of people that like to say that those making money are luckier than they because they find the opportunities. And I think the opportunities are out there for anybody who's willing to look for them and willing to study.
Ron Cretan, Don Mitchell, and Don and Jerry Hedberg share similar life stories. All of them began with few resources. Today, they are all high net worth individuals with substantial investments in real estate and the stock market. And they all have venture capital interests in many small businesses. Their success did not come overnight, but as Don Hedberg says, they are successful beyond their dreams. Now they've consented to share some of the keys to their success with those who are serious about starting a long-term program of wealth building. We caught up with Don Mitchell while he was on a business trip to Chicago. Mitchell is a former elementary school teacher from Southern Illinois. These days, he's based in Minneapolis, but travels widely looking after his investments and seeking out new opportunities. His investment career began when he needed extra income to raise his family. He and a partner created and sold supplemental materials to elementary school teachers.
You won't believe this, but we really started with just $1,000 each was our initial investment. And our idea was that we wanted to get that $1,000 investment back as soon as possible. We were real worried that we wouldn't get our money back, say, within 6 months. But from that initial investment of $1,000, $2,000, $1,000 from the other guy and $1,000 from me, in a few years we sold that company for several million dollars.
For Mitchell, that was just the beginning of his serious investing career. Since that time, he has substantially increased his net worth through holdings in real estate, cattle ranching, publishing, and through active investing in the stock market. As a veteran teacher, Don believes that the same principles that underlie successful learning also hold true for successful investing.
I think this idea of self-confidence, self-esteem, positive self-esteem, is the foundation for good education, and I think it's also the foundation for personal investment. In other words, I think you have to believe what you're doing and believe in yourself that it'll be successful. I think this is 90% of any kind of successful wealth building program.
Now for the first of our 14 wealth building strategies. A wealth building program requires a safety net.
My 92-year-old grandmother keeps some money rolled up in a sock in their house, and she hides this money in all the little secret places that she has. And I think the main reason she hides it is to keep it away from my 96-year-old grandfather, who she's been married to for 75 years. What this represents to Grandma is a safety net, a nest egg, if you will, a comfort level. And I'm not suggesting that anyone roll their money up and hide it in a sock, but what I am suggesting is that you build a 3 to 6 month safety net, nest egg, as the base of your wealth building program.
Strategy number 2, follow the 80-20 principle.
I have many friends and even my own relatives who they seem to have a little financial control. They live from paycheck to paycheck. And I believe very sincerely that in order to develop a sound wealth building program, you need to learn to do the 80-20 principle, and that is you live on 80% of what you make, and you build your nest egg with the other 20%.
Some people collect stamps, others collect trading cards or antiques. Ron Cretin collects financial investments. Ron is an investor in 7 companies around the country, including this roller skating center in Milwaukee. His investments range from a distribution company to a marketing company and even include a professional soccer team. He's also currently involved in a handful of real estate deals and owns a diversified portfolio of stocks and bonds. But it wasn't always this way.
I was born on a farm. My father then moved into construction. I did learn some great lessons from him because he made it through the school of hard knocks and for many, many years didn't make money in either one of those businesses. But that hard work, that ethic of hard work, whether it be in your job or in your investment portfolio, is what I learned. And I think that that's what everyone can do.
Ron's first opportunity came his way through a friend of the family. The man liked Ron's work ethic and offered to sell him his $300,000 business and finance 95% of the sale.
I learned from the first investment that there are owners who will finance you to buy a property. After learning that, my second investment was 100% financed by the owner. My third investment was 80% financed by the owner. So I only had to bring a marginal amount of cash to the table and didn't have to go to any bank financing to get into those investments. Owners will finance. Owners will finance property. Owners will finance real estate. Owners will finance a business if they want to get out of it, particularly if they've been sitting on it for a while. That's a good way to get into a property.
Among his current investments are commercial real estate deals, an area that has seen bad times for a number of years. But where others see trouble, savvy investors like Ron Cretin see opportunities.
I think the best tip I have for the 90s, the 80s, 70s, and beyond is the fact that everything is somewhat cyclical. And when everyone else is afraid to be in an investment and it's not going to ever be good again, it's, real estate today, it's gone forever, that's the time you should be dabbling in it somewhat. You should be looking for some real good opportunities because that's when opportunities happen. My wife is the best at looking for sales. All right. When there's a sale on any store, she says, it's on sale, I have to buy it. And a lot of people are that way. Yet when investments are on sale, people don't want them. When they're going for top dollar, that's when they want them. And if you would just somewhat look at your investments as you would the department store sales, I think people would be a lot better off.
Here are Ron Cretin's top wealth building strategies. Strategy number 3, leverage other people's money for your investments.
The best advice I can give anyone is what I've used a lot myself, and that is the leveraging of an investment by getting owner financing, that being from a piece of real estate or from a business, from someone who's selling that business or a piece of real estate, and getting them to finance as much of that purchase as possible.
Strategy number 4. Target your investments.
One of the things I've done at this stage of my life is I'm very, very diversified. However, early on, I wasn't. And I think that's an important point to make here. I had to put a lot of eggs in one basket to get to the point I am now. And I took a lot of risk up front by going into an investment that was available that took a lot of my equity capital. I knew the investment well. I studied the investment well, and that was a springboard to get me into other things. But I think early on, it's difficult to be too diversified. You're not going to get much bang for your buck if you try to get too diversified with a small portfolio. You might have to take a little bit more risk up front with a small portfolio and take something that's a little bit higher risk. At least I did.
Don and Jerry Hedberg are enjoying their recent retirement at their new lakeside home in Wisconsin. They are more than comfortable now. They travel the world, entertain grandchildren, and enjoy the good things of life that go along with financial success. It all began many years ago when Don, then a chemist at Procter & Gamble, was fired from his job.
What was I going to do? And I think that maybe gave me a lot of sleepless nights, but it also drove me on to developing other options and developing products and developing the business. I think insecurity, being scared that you're not going to have a check tomorrow, is a great motivator.
When Don lost his job, he and Jerry started a series of little businesses from their home. First, there was a product called the Chemical Predictor, then a business called Science-Related Materials. But none of these early businesses did very well.
We never considered giving up. It was never an option. Even when an attorney told us our best choice was declare bankruptcy, that made us fight even harder. I don't think you can give up. You've got to keep trying, and you're going to fail sometimes.
You have to be able to take risk, because if you don't, you wouldn't do anything. So Don and I put our everything into this company, and we would continue to plow the money back into the company. That was important too. It wasn't until later that we could diversify and get into other investments.
The Hedbergs finally hit it big with another of Don's ideas, a catalog business selling safety equipment. Over 15 years, the catalog grew to more than 500 pages and the company to some 600 employees. Recently, Don and Jerry sold their business to a giant distribution company for more than $100 million. What do they think was the key to their enormous success?
Well, I think you have to know what your strengths are, how much risk you're willing to take, and what you have to define, such as we define, that giving the best service was indeed something that we did very well. And that as a result of this good service, customers were willing to come back to us for repeat business, and that's what it's all about.
Now in their retirement, Don and Jerry are serious investors with a wide-ranging portfolio of stocks, bonds, and real estate. They bring the same philosophy to their investments that they brought to their family business. It's a strategy that makes sense for every investor. Strategy number 5, only invest in what you know.
When additional funds became available and we had to invest them, rather than put them in a savings account, we purchased stocks in companies that we already knew about, because we were probably doing business with those companies, and it gave us some insight on what is a good stock to buy and what not to buy. And I think that helped us grow our net worth.
The Hedbergs, Don Mitchell and Ron Cretin, are all examples of people who have put wealth-building strategies to work. They know it can be done. They've done it. Now let's meet some top experts in financial planning and investing. They have more wealth-building strategies that you can learn from. Strategy number 6. To deal with risk, use asset allocation.
One of the most effective strategies for investment is asset allocation. It is a key because it captures the essence of risk tolerance that you can take as an individual. Now, asset allocation, what we mean by that is mixing stocks and bonds and money market. And we want to mix as much stock as we can tolerate because over long periods of time, usually 10 years or more, stocks have outperformed every other asset class. The question is, how much stocks can we take? For instance, in 1974, stocks were down 26%. And if you had all of your portfolio in the stock market, that would have been a terrible blow for you. If, however, you were asset allocated, 60% stocks, 40% bonds and money market, you'd have only been down about 13, 14%. If you were at a more conservative posture of 30% stocks, 70% bonds and money market, you'd have only been down about 4%. So that gives you an idea of how to determine what kind of asset allocation you'll feel comfortable with. So the effective strategy here is to deal with risk. The key is asset allocation.
Strategy number 7. Be a prudent risk taker.
One of the biggest risks in investing is taking no risk at all. Every investor needs to take a prudent amount of risk. Unfortunately, all too many take no risk at all. They invest in the extreme of keeping their money in ultra-safe CDs and money market accounts. They're going to lose ground to inflation over the long run and have a very difficult time reaching their financial dreams. Now, the best investments are those that will periodically decline in value. What I'm talking about here are stocks, bonds, and real estate. And experienced investors are used to the fact that periodically these will decline in value, but over the long run, they far outpace so-called savings-type investments like CDs, money market accounts, treasury bills, and what have you.
Strategy number 8. Don't sell your investment property, trade it.
One strategy that a lot of investors who have investment property employ is instead of selling their property and ending up paying a large taxable income on it and hence paying a lot of income tax, is to instead swap that property for another piece of property. Uncle Sam has in the tax code basically enabled anybody who has properties like that to swap it for equal or greater value into a new piece of property. Now basically that transaction is a little bit more complicated than the one, for example, rolling your house over into a new house. Uncle Sam allows you to defer taxes on that as well as deferring taxes on an investment property. Because the transaction is much more complicated, it's advised that you get a hold of your attorney, your accountant, and of course the broker involved to handle the transaction from the beginning to the end because of all the legal complications that could come up in a transaction like that.
Strategy number 9. Shift some income to your children.
Every parent can take advantage of a marvelous tax shelter, and that's shifting investments to their children in order to take advantage of the child's lower tax bracket. Now, the rules vary depending upon whether the children are under age 14 or over 14. But for those parents who are setting aside money to pay for their kids' education, this is a marvelous way and a very tax-advantaged way to start accumulating college funds.
Here are some wealth-building strategies that can help you be a winner on Wall Street. Strategy number 10. Never ride a stock down to its grave.
We usually don't have trouble hanging on to a stock when it goes up. The problem is when to cut our losses when the stock goes down. If a stock goes down and you're not sure why, perhaps that's the time to sell it. A more specific suggestion, if the stock is going down 15% or more, that is probably the time to sell it. We want to keep in mind that sometimes the whole market goes down, and so therefore our stock will go down. So we may want to be careful about this individual stock going down or the 15% rule. But in general, you want to cut your losses. You do not want to ride your losses all the way to the bottom. So the 15% rule is probably a pretty good strategy. That is, if the stock goes down 15% or more, that's the time to sell.
Strategy number 11, buy high, sell higher.
Now, many people say don't buy stocks that are very high priced because they only have room to go down. But in fact, often that is not a good strategy. And the reason is, if it's a very good company, it could end up going much higher. Now, good companies often never get cheap because if they have a very good record, people continue to appreciate them and the stock goes up with the earnings. Take, for example, Walmart. Had you bought Walmart in the early 1980s, people said, wow, what a great company, but it's very high priced. But in fact, over the next decade, it went up over 30 times and continues to do extremely well. So don't be afraid to buy high because you can always sell higher.
Strategy number 12, use dollar cost averaging for your stock market investments.
No one, not even the experts, know whether stock prices are going to rise or fall. So the best way to invest well over the long run is to take a disciplined approach to investing. And I think dollar cost averaging is the way to go. This involves putting a fixed amount of money into an investment at regular intervals. It could be quarterly, could be monthly. But by so doing, you're buying a fewer number of shares when stock prices are high and a greater number of shares when stock prices are low. And over the long run, it stands you in very good stead.
Strategy number 13, take advantage of drips.
Now, another way to build wealth over time very easily is by enrolling in a so-called dividend reinvestment plan, or DRIP as they're known for short. Now, what a DRIP is where you get dividends from a stock and you reinvest it in more shares of the stock automatically. There are several advantages of these DRIP plans. First of all, there are no fees at all, no brokerage commissions and no administrative fees. Secondly, they're automatic. Once you've set it up, you don't have to worry about it ever again. And thirdly, you get that wonderful effect of compounding over time. Those dividends buy more stock, which produces more dividends, which produces more stock, and it's really a wonderful compounding vehicle over time. Now, there's one even better kind of DRIP called a discount DRIP. Instead of just getting the shares of stock, you actually get 5% more. So if, say, your $100 worth of dividends actually buy you $105 worth of stock over time. So find one of those. There's about 100 companies offering discount DRIPs these days. Now, here's how you start. In order to be in a dividend reinvestment plan with a company, you have to have the stock registered in your own name, not the broker's name as it normally would be. And you can also take a look at a newsletter called The DRIP Investor to find out more about which companies are offering good plans these days.
Strategy number 14, earn extra income on your stock portfolio using the options markets.
Experienced investors can take advantage of a variety of strategies to hedge against a possible loss in the value of their investments or to add extra income to their investments. Now, these strategies are not without risk, so you need to ask your broker about them. One that you might want to consider if you own some stock, which you expect to hold for a long time, is what is known as writing covered call options against this stock. Now, it's not without risk, but by writing these options, you can earn extra premium income on your investments.
There you have it, 14 wealth-building strategies that you can use today. Each one can help you achieve your financial goals. But we don't want to end this tape without passing on perhaps the most important wisdom our professional moneymakers had to say.
We had a plaque in my business, and on this plaque there were the words, if you think you can, or if you think you can't, you're absolutely right. I think 90% of being successful is thinking you'll be successful, believing you'll be successful.
One of the things I think that most people should realize is, first of all, the Lord gave us two different ends in our body. We have one that we sit on and one that we think. And I think to a large extent, your success in investment or anything else depends upon which one of those ends you use the most.
There is nothing to prevent you from becoming wealthy except yourself.
The opportunities are out there for anybody who's willing to look for them and willing to study.
Wealth building is a lifelong process. As we've seen, it takes focus, attention, and commitment. We know 100 Steps meets the needs of those who are serious about achieving their financial dreams. We believe strongly here at Money that knowledge is the key to financial success, And that is what 100 Steps is all about.